What is up, you guys? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video. Now honestly, I thought I was a pretty tough cookie before researching this video, but afterwards I was like, damn. Like, I would have legit died in every one of these scenarios, no cap. Surviving events like these is literally a miracle, you guys. 11 out of 10 times the person should have died, yet they didn't. So these are the top 10 people who survived scary situations. Starting off is surviving Dahmer. Now unless you live under a rock, then you've definitely heard of the infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. I also watched his documentary on Netflix and I was pretty I'm not gonna lie. Have you guys seen it? Let me know below. He dismembered and murdered 17 men in his run by turning his regular Milwaukee apartment into the butcher shop from Sweeney Todd. Just for a SparkNotes version for what used to go down, Jeffrey would lure his victims to his house and do every unspeakable thing under the sun, ranging from cannibalism and medical experimentation to necrophilia. But the main character of the story isn't him, it's Tracy Edwards. Jeffrey invited him over for beer and to watch The Exorcist 3, but when Tracy got there, he very quickly realized he made a grave mistake. Jeffrey forced him to get on the ground while wielding a butcher knife, talking about how he was going to carve his heart out and eat it. As the film went on, Tracy knew he was running out of time. He allowed Jeffrey to handcuff one of his wrists, and after distracting him, he managed to hit him and run outside and flag down a police car. And obviously they then investigated his house and found 4 human heads in his fridge, but I mean, at least Tracy escaped and survived, so there's that. Oh, I would have just cried so hard. I would just be like, just kill me, just end it. End it all. Coming in at number 9 is Bahia Bakari. I think this is honestly one of my worst fears come to life, so I don't even know how Bahia did it, but she did, so kudos to her. So back in June of 2009, Yemenia Flight 626 had 152 people on board it when it crashed into the Indian Ocean at about 2 AM. Despite not wearing a life jacket or being a strong swimmer, Bahia was ejected from the plane and hung onto a bit of debris in order to survive. Apparently there were other survivors since she did hear them, but they slowly but surely started fading away. At about 11 AM, 9 hours after the crash, she was found by a civilian vessel that had been hired to look for the remains of the crash and for any possible survivors. She was the only one who survived it, coming away with just a broken collarbone, fractured pelvis, and more. Which, given the context, is a lot less than I thought it would be. Just saying. Oh, can you imagine? Like, my worst, I'd rather crash on land than crash in the water. Like, I cannot be in the ocean. I cannot. The sharks will get me if the plane crash hasn't already. At number 8, we have Buried Alive. Now usually if you think your relationship isn't going well or you think you're low-key just tired of your partner, the logical next step is usually just to break up with them. But that was not what Marcin Kasprzak chose to do. Marcin's relationship with his fiancée Michalina Lewandowska was going down the drain, and so he hatched a plan to get rid of her. He, along with his friend Patrick, attacked her with a stun gun, and once she was subdued on the ground for long enough, they bound her ankles and wrists and tied her up. Then, since they apparently hadn't thought of what to do next, they just left her like that for hours until finally shoving her into a cardboard box and driving out into the woods. How did she not cramp up so much while in that position for hours? I would have literally, again, probably died. There and then. There, the duo buried her alive under 4 inches of dirt and a 90-pound tree branch. Feeling immense claustrophobia, worried for her 3-year-old son, Michalina knew she had to survive somehow. She used her engagement ring, which is, I guess, good for something, to cut through the rope and claw out of the ground after already being under for 2 hours. Both men involved got sentenced to 20 years each, but I feel like they should have been sentenced to life. How can you not be sentenced to life when you literally tried to kill someone by burying them alive? Your fiancé, no less. Snakery. Filling at number 7 slot is The Hitchhiker. This one comes from Redditor SpazMonkey1949, who said their sister's adopted brother once picked up a hitchhiker who looked like he was in need of a lot of help. The guy got into the passenger seat, and about 10 minutes into the drive, he slit the brother's throat, kicked him out of his own car, and left him to die on the isolated country road. Thankfully, no major arteries were hit, so the brother tied his shirt around his throat and crawled to the nearest farmhouse to get help. Can you imagine having your slit throat and crawling to a farmhouse? Like, I'm stunned. And I mean, they did end up catching the guy and he went to jail, so I guess he did live happily ever after, except, you know, having a scar and a huskier voice. Now at number 6 is Dad. This one was shared by Reddit user BirdsMom28, who said when he was 6 years old, he witnessed his dad stab his mother 20 times in front of him and his little brother. He then took a bunch of her blood and started rubbing it on his brother's face, saying, "This is your mother's blood," as their mum lay there almost dead in front of their eyes. The two managed to get her to the hospital in time, which is a ridiculous feat to achieve for a 6-year-old, and they saved her just in time. The dad was then jailed for only 8 years, claiming insanity and that he had heard demons telling him to do it. I feel like it's the biggest cop-out to plead insanity. I feel like that's the easiest way to get out of a sentencing. You just have to go to a psych ward for the rest of your life. Which I mean, jail is probably better than that. Coming in at number 5 is The Fall. Just reading this story gave me major vertigo. I was like, ugh. Now, as window washers, Alcides Moreno and his brother Edgar were more than used to the risks that came with their job, as well as the high heights they had to work at. But back in December of 2007, the rig they were on disengaged, sending both of them 47 stories down to the ground, which is about 500 feet. When firefighters got there, Edgar was long dead, but Alcides was miraculously alive and conscious. Guesses are that he had somehow managed to ride the platform while falling, which slowed down his descent. I mean, he still had shattered limbs, fractured ribs, and major injuries to his brain and spine, but he did survive. Doctors were shook because surviving a fall from 3 stories or above is usually fatal, let alone managing to survive 47. Even when I see the window washers washing my windows, I'm just like, can you not fall, can you not fall, can you not fall? At number 4 is Not Dead Yet. Angel Resendiz, aka the Railway Killer, killed 23 people across the US and Mexico during the 90s. In 1997, Holly Dunn and her boyfriend Chris Meyer were on their way home from a friend's party when they were stopped by a man asking for money by a train station. After showing them that he had an ice pick, he managed to tie them up and bring them to a ditch nearby. After checking to see whether they'd been followed, Angel proceeded to beat Chris to death with a 50-pound rock. Realizing that maybe he wanted to kill 2 people that night instead of 1, he then raped Holly, stabbed her in the neck with the ice pick, and then beat her till she passed out. Now at this point, Angel thought she was dead, but she was very much not. When she regained consciousness, she managed to drag herself to a house, also while having a broken jaw, shattered eye socket, and a plethora of other injuries. She survived and testified against him, and he was sentenced to death. And mind you, she was the sole survivor of all of his murders, and that is saying something. Good on you, Holly Dunn. You drag yourself out of that ditch, and you testify against him. Filling our number 3 slot is Felix. Cartels are not a joke, people. I know their portrayals in movies and shows like Narcos are dramatized, but they're not exaggerated. You are royally screwed if you end up on a cartel's hit list. Like, it's done. You are over. You are cancelled. Hashtag cancel party is you. Either way, within Mexico, the warring Zeta and Gulf cartels have killed dozens of people in their crossfire. One night, a 20-year-old guy called Felix was walking home when he was picked up by a police officer and dropped off at a Zeta cartel safe house. And keep in mind, in a lot of these places there is no law. The police help the cartel, or the cartel is the law. After being dropped off, he spent the next week being pistol whipped, beaten, and shocked while they called his family demanding a ransom. The cartel went as far as to torture and kill Gulf cartel members in front of him, and eventually his family managed to wire them $5,000, but obviously it wasn't enough. They demanded double. In the following months, he was shipped from safe house to safe house, getting beaten regularly until one day he was beaten to a pulp and left for dead on the street. But thankfully, he actually survived. Go Felix. Now at number 2 are the snow tracks. This one's from Redditor Laundry Soap, who shared this story on behalf of her boyfriend's mum. Growing up, the mum lived in a weirdly designed house, meaning there were doors leading to the outside all over the house, including in her bedroom. She started feeling unsafe in the house, like she was being watched, and honestly, with that many entry points, I would have been it as well. Her parents brushed it off as her being afraid of the dark, even though she insisted she'd heard her doorknob being rattled from the outside. Things got so bad to the point she'd wake up screaming every night and started sleeping in her parents' room. One night, the dad went to use the bathroom and saw a shadowy figure move down the hallway and the noise of footsteps. Nah honey, you ain't dreaming. He searched the house and found nothing until the next morning. Leading up to every window and door were fresh footprints in the snow outside. It was clear that someone had really been trying to get into the house, and after following the prints, they led the dad to a house where a mentally disturbed teenager lived. The boy admitted he would enter the house every single night and just watch the girl sleep. Like, imagine if that had progressed and he probably would have raped her or killed her or kidnapped her. Imagine being watched every night and you know you're being watched and your parents still believe you. That's a scary situation. That just happened. Finally, at number 1 is 24 Hours. In Feb of 2006, 5-year-old Jake Finkbonker was playing in a league basketball game when he was pushed from behind and split his lip open on the base of the hoop. Now normally that wouldn't have been a big deal, except the surface of the hoop had the bacteria Strep A on it, which is actually a flesh-eating bacteria. Within hours, the doctors told Jake and his parents that he was most likely going to die because the bacteria was literally eating his face and it was just spreading so fast from his lips to everywhere else, and usually this bacteria doesn't stop spreading until the person is dead. Most patients die within a day of diagnosis, but somehow the infection slowed and stopped. The family believe it was because they prayed to Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha, a Mohawk Indian, and she performed the miracle that saved him. And that is it for today's video, guys. Can you just take this all in? Like, slow clap for the people on this list because you defied all odds. Kudos to you. I'm so proud of everyone on this list because goddamn, I would've died. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and also if you'd like a part 2, I feel like I low-key love this series. As always, I'm your host Eamon Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!